Okay. Jai Sri Narayana, everyone. So, during this month of Dhanurmasam, we have started this humble effort of understanding the meanings of Thiruppavai Pasurams. We have been doing it successfully for the past 6 days by Perumal's grace and Goda Devi's grace and Acharya Kripa. So today we will try to understand the meaning of the seventh Pasuram in Thiruppavai. So we will go ahead and get started. ओम अस्मद्गुरुभ्यो नमः। ओम नमः परमऋषिभ्यो नमः परमऋषिभ्यः। ओम नमः परमऋषिभ्यो नमः परमऋषिभ्यः। ओम नीलातुङ्गस्तनगिरितटे सुप्तमुद्बोध्य कृष्णं पारार्थ्यं स्वं श्रुतिशतशिरःसिद्धमध्यापयन्ति स्वोच्छिष्ठायां सृजनिगडितं याबलात्कृत्य भुङ्क्ते गोदा तस्यै नम इदमिदं भूय एवास्तु भूयः। ஈசு கீசன் ரங்கும் ஆனை சாத்தன் கலந்து பேசின பேச்சரவம் கேட்டிடையோ பெய்ப்பெண்ணே காசும் பிறப்பும் கலகலப்பக்கை பேர்த்து வாசனரும் குழலாட்சியர் மத்தினால் ஓசை படுத்த தைரரவம் கேட்டிடையோ நாயக பெண் பிள்ளாய் நாராயணன் மூர்த்தி கேசவனை பாடவும் நீ கேட்டே கிடத்தியோ தேசமுடையாய் திரவேலோரெம்பாவாய். ஆண்டாள் திருவடிகளே சரணம்.
ஆனை சாத்தன் கலந்து கீசென்றெங்கும் ஆனை சாத்தன் கலந்து பேசின பேச்சரவம் கேட்டிலையோ பெண்ணே காசும் பிறப்பும் கலகலப்ப கை பேர்த்து காசும் பிறப்பும் கலகலப்ப கை பேர்த்து வாச நரும் குழலாட்சியர் மத்தினார் ஓசை படுத்த தைரரவம் கேட்டிலையோ நாயக பெண் பிள்ளாய் நாராயணன் மூர்த்தி கேசவனை பாடவும் நீ கேட்டே கிடத்தியோ நாயக பெண் பிள்ளாய் நாராயணன் மூர்த்தி கேசவனை பாட இந்த மியூசிக்கல் சாங் கேசவனை பாடவும் கேட்டே கிடத்தியோ தேசமுடையாய் திரவேலோர்யம் பாவாய் தேசமுடையாய் திரவேலோர்யம் பாவாய்.
So, from Pasurams 6 to 15, Andal takes the mood of a gopi trying to take shelter of other gopis. So, Andal does not want to approach Krishna all alone, but she wants to gather a lot of gopikas and go along with them. And our Purvacharyas have given very beautiful explanations that, the 10 Pasurams that, from 6 to 15, they represent 10 different kinds of bhagavatas that Andal is trying to take shelter of. Because, in yesterday we have learned how, just like when we try to study a new book or anything on our own, a new course or something, on the first attempt, we won't be able to understand everything fully. But the same textbook or anything, if we study under the guidance of a learned teacher, a very experienced teacher, then our first learning will be enhanced much more significantly, right? So in general, that is the principle of taking shelter of bhagavatas or acharyas who are more experienced when we approach the path of devotion, also when we try to approach Perumal, because they have certain anubhutis, they have certain experiences that, certain things that have worked for them, right? And they give that path to us so that that path becomes easy for us based on the background from which we start. So Andal represents someone who does that. Very interestingly, in Pasuram 6, right? Just like for, this is another way of understanding how the entire Vedam is actually packed into Thiruppavai, right? So a very interesting observation here is that in the previous Pasuram, it's like when we begin Vedam, we begin by saying Sri Guru Bhyo Namaha Harihi Om, right? It's very interesting that there is a reference to Guru in the previous Pasuram, Pasuram 6, right? Pull, like birds. She was talking about acharyas, gurus, right? So there's a reference to gurus. There is a reference to Om also, because she was referring to Shankam, right? Vili Shankam, right? She was saying a white conch that was being blown in a temple, right? And there is also reference to Ariyanna Peraravam. So there is also reference to Hari. So Sri Guru Bhyo Namaha Harihi Om is something she has made sure she has covered in that Pasuram 6 very beautifully, right? So now here, so yesterday she took shelter of a certain Bhagavata who had that kind of Bhagavat Anubhuti, right? That Bhagavata was going through that experience. And our Purvacharyas have commented that this refers to, different Alvars or refers to different Acharyas all the way from Asmat Guru all the way till Sri Setagopamuni. So now Andal today is trying to take shelter of another kind of Gopika who also has experience of the Lord and who also does not want to come out of that experience so easily, because she's enjoying that experience, but she doesn't want to come out of that experience so easily. And these Gopikas are very eager to take shelter of that Bhagavata because they also want to experience the same experience that the other Gopika has, right? But the difference here is this Gopika is someone whose jnanam has gone all the way till Anushthana. So that is something we will see as a development here in this Pasuram. So the Pasuram starts very beautifully. Keeshu endru engum aanai chaattan kalandu. So there is a certain reference to certain kind of birds. Okay, Bharadwaja Pakshis, they are called in Sanskrit. In English, they are called, kukul birds, apparently, crow, pheasant, or king crow. That's what the bird is called. Okay. So this Bharadwaja Pakshi is very interesting. So what Andal is saying is, keeshu. So early in the morning, you are hearing this chirping of this Bharadwaja Pakshis, right? What are they trying to talk? So they have some kaland. They were together the entire night. They were together. In the morning also, they were together for a certain time. They were trying to converse with each other, something that we don't understand. They were trying to converse with each other, and after some time, they will depart from there because they will fly off for the day, right? And then throughout the day, they will try to keep remembering those conversations. Just like, when, we love someone and, just before we go to, we have all come to America, right? Just before we come to America, the last piece of advice that, our parents give us something, we try to remember after coming here. Or that's what they said. Maybe, we go to a different city, last piece of advice, make sure you do this or something. Or they said that we have to do this. In this way, we keep remembering those things which our loved ones give in terms of advice, right? In this way, apparently Andal is visualizing that these birds are also sort of remembering those last pieces of conversations that they are having with the other Bharadwaja Pakshis. Anai Chattan. So that is the Bharadwaja Pakshi that is being talked about. Pesina Pecharavam, these sounds of the speech of these birds, Kettidayo, didn't you hear? This is the question that, this group of girls along with Andal who are outside are asking the girl who is inside. Right? Haven't you heard the chirping of the Bharadwaja Pakshis who are talking to each other before they depart? Right? This is the external meaning of this first line. Internally, if we try to understand why is the specific reference made to Bharadwaja Pakshis, right? Bharadwaja Maharshi has a very distinct identity with study of the Vedam, right? He was someone who was so eager to study the Vedam that apparently it is told that he wanted to study the entire Vedam. So he had a span of 100 years. He spent that entire 100 years to study Vedam very nicely. And then the time had come for him to depart from that body. And then at that time, Brahma came. And then Bharadwaja Maharshi asked for another 100 years. So that he said, I didn't finish the study of the Vedam. I need another 100 years. Then that 100 years was sanctioned. Again, he went on studying. Again, 100 years went away. And then again, Brahma appeared. And then he said, my study is not yet complete. He wanted another 100 years. So he spent another 100 years. He still studied. And then Brahma came again. Again, he said, my study is not complete. Then Brahma said, wait a second. Do you know how much of the Vedam you have managed to study until now? Then he created a huge mountain. He picked, 3 fistfuls of mud from it. And he said, these 3 fistfuls are the portions that you have studied out of this huge mountain. So, Anantavai Vedaha. So, Veda is very unlimited, right? It's not possible for anybody to think that they can actually study the entire Vedam also. Right? Several branches are even lost today. Very few branches are remaining in the Vedam. So, thankfully, our Purvacharyas, they have been able to capture, all the way from Vyasa, right? They have been able to capture the essence of the Veda in the form of Brahma Sutras, in the form of Upanishads, and so on, right? So, this entire Vedam, the Jnanam contained in the entire Vedams is what these Bharadwaja Pakshis represent. But it's not that they are someone who are just Bharadwaja, they are Bharadwaja Pakshis. Like we studied yesterday, that Pakshi or bird represents someone with wings. What are the 2 wings of the bird? Jnanam and Anushtanam. So it is not that they have just theoretical knowledge, but they also have that Anushtanam of the knowledge that they have practiced. And these Pakshis, what are they doing? Keeshu and so they are trying to converse with each other. They are trying to chirp with each other. So there is not just Swadhyaya, but there is also Pravachana associated with this. Like we study in Taittiriya Upanishad, right? Ritancha Swadhyaya Pravachanecha, Satyancha Swadhyaya Pravachanecha, Tapascha, Damascha, Agnayascha, Agnihotrancha. In this way, Swadhyaya Pravachanabhyamna Pramaditavyam, right? Kushalanna Pramaditavyam, Bhutyayana Pramaditavyam, Dharmanna Pramaditavyam. In this way, Taittiriya Upanishad says that no matter what you do, don't stop these 2, Swadhyaya and Pravachana, right? All the dharmas have to be performed. Deva Pitrukarya Brahmana Pramaditavyam. That Devakaryas, Pitrukaryas, these are all our Nitya karmas, Naimittika karmas that we all have to do. So while doing these karmas, there are 2 things we should not stop, because the ability to perform all these really depends upon those 2, right? Swadhyaya and Pravachana. What is that Swadhyaya? Study, right? We should keep studying. The more we study the Vedas, the more we try to understand the Vedas, the more we study, the better our knowledge of the Shastras will be. And based on that, our own ability to do our karmas properly will increase, right? And Pravachana, also we should try to share the messages out to others, right? Whatever we are trying to learn, we should also try to share. So these 2 are 2 things that are, sort of the core of all the activities that we do. And this is what we are seeing in this Bharadwaja Pakshis, right? They are not only trying to practice, and they are also trying to share. It is like the experience of 2 Bhagavatas sharing with each other their realizations of Shastram, right? 2 Bhagavatas are trying to, so apparently different Bharadwaja Pakshis are conversing with each other, and they are trying to do keeshu. That means they are trying to do some sounds, right? They are trying to share realizations with each other. After that, they will depart and they'll enter into their Anushtanam. While doing Anushtanam, they also try to meditate upon those meanings that they have learned from each other. Andal's questioned repeatedly, even in the previous Pasuram or in this Pasuram, she keeps asking one question. Kettilayo, she keeps asking. Have you heard? Have you heard? She stresses on the importance of hearing, right? What should we hear? We should hear these realizations of great Bhagavatas, discussions of great Bhagavatas. We should try to understand what happened in the discussion between Nanjiyar and Parashara Bhattar. What happened in the Goshti of Tirukkoštiyur Nambi? What was the discussion between sage Parasara and sage Maitreya, right? What is the content of Vishnu Purana? What was the discussion between Sukha Maharshi and Parikshit? What is the content of Bhagavata Purana? So in this way, we should always try to hear these conversations of 2 realized souls, because that conversations between 2 realized souls will give rise to a lot of knowledge. There's a lot for us to tap into. right? Lot for us to implement from that. So Andal is trying to indicate that, have you heard, in the sense that, this is what we all are supposed to do, right? That's when we will try to understand the importance of taking shelter of Bhagavatas, because even Krishna says, right, Purvairapi mumukshubhihi kuru karmeva tasmatvam purvaihi purvataram kritam, that the way in which we should conduct in this world should be based on the conduct of previous mumukshus, someone who has practiced how to attain liberation previously. Our conduct should be along the lines of such great personalities. For that, we should try to understand what important discussions they had, what were the beautiful realizations they had. Two great personalities, what did they talk about? Right? So all our scriptures, our Purvacharya Granthas are basically these conversations, right? If we see any Vyakhyanams of Purvacharya Granthas also, they keep citing that in a discussion between Parashara Bhattar and Anjiyar, this question was raised, this is the answer he provided. So that is how we try to understand what the realizations of great souls were. So, Ketiliyo, have you heard? That means, have we understood? Have we heard that? So she is asking us to focus on that. So, and then she's also trying to, why is this hearing process very important? Because, like I said, everything rests upon hearing. The Bhagavatam in particular stresses the importance of hearing, right? Even in Navavidha Bhakti, most of us may be familiar with these terms, right? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnoho, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atmanivedanam. These are the 9 kinds of bhakti, right? The first thing is Shravanam, right? Bhagavatam says that the Shravanam is the thing that is capable of removing all the abhadras from the heart. It is the thing that is capable of removing Rajoguna and Tamoguna from the heart. It is the thing that is capable of establishing us in Sattvaguna. It is the thing that is capable of giving the experience of the Lord. And it is the thing that is capable of taking us all the way to the Lord, right? Everything rests upon Shravanam, says Bhagavatam, right? Because the more we hear, these things sink into our heart completely, to such an extent that they become our other self, right? We completely become that by repeatedly hearing these messages, right? So that is why hearing is important. So now she's getting into another thing. So she's also talking about other kinds of sounds that are being heard, right? She's saying Kasum Pirappum Kalagalapakkai Perth and Vasanarum Kodal Achiyar. Mattinal Osepadutta Tairaravam Kettilayo. So she is asking about other sounds that are happening there. What are the other sounds? So apparently she has come to wake up this Gopika, right? That means she is giving indications of morning. So the first indication she gave is some chirping of the birds. That is one indication in this Pasuram, right? The second indication she is giving is, what do the Gopikas do early in the morning? She's talking about that. So all the Gopikas, their Nitya Karma Anushtanam is, as soon as they wake up, they decorate themselves beautifully. They decorate their hairs with flowers and so on. And then they get into the task of churning. That is the thing that they engage in. That is their Nitya Karma, right? Every day they try to churn the butter, churn the curd, and then churn the buttermilk and then extract butter from it. That is the first task that they do early in the morning. In that experience, she is trying to describe. So as the Gopikas are trying to churn, right, different kinds of sounds are being heard. The first sound is, as they are trying to churn, there is a sound coming from the churning itself, the churning process itself. The second thing that is happening is their bangles or whatever, things they have worn, those things are clanging to each other and they are making a certain sound. The next thing that is happening is they might have had certain necklaces and lockets and Mangalasutra and all these things. All those things are also clanging to each other and they are making a certain sound. And the fourth sound that is coming is from their mouths. They're all singing Govinda, Madhava, Krishna, Damodara in this way constantly. The thing that constantly happens in Gokula is chanting the names of Krishna. That is one thing they will not stop under any circumstances. Apparently, an incident is described how, a certain lady there, she was so much mad and with ecstasy about Krishna that constantly she was thinking about Krishna. Her mother-in-law thought that this girl is not doing anything. Let me give her a task. And therefore, she gave her some pots of butter or something to go and sell. Instead of saying butter, milk, and so on, she was saying Govinda, Madhava, Damodara, she was saying. So even there, her absorption was on that. Because as soon as, you think about butter, you remember Damodara. As soon as you think about something else, you remember, Krishna. In this way, the mind is constantly absorbed in Krishna, right, for all these Gopikas. So that is another sound that is coming. So now she is asking the Gopika inside, have you not heard these sounds? Right? What is the significance of hearing these sounds? What exactly is the churning process? In fact, the Lord himself demonstrated the significance of churning by performing the Ksheerasagara Mathanam. Right? What is the ultimate goal of Ksheerasagara Mathanam? He told the Devatas that Amrutam is your final goal. So many objects will come out of it. You don't focus your attention on those. Okay? If you get something, great. If you don't get, just remain satisfied. Okay? But Amrutam is the thing that you should focus on. In other words, he's saying that when we do this Mathanam, our goal should be on Amrutam or attaining. Amrutam means what? Lack of death, right? So that should be our goal. Our goal should be to attain immortality. Our goal should be attain moksham. That should be the ultimate goal. What is this Mathanam that is being talked about? What is this Ksheerasagaram? There are so many different interpretations. We are sharing one interpretation here. The Ksheerasagaram is nothing but the Vedas. The Vedas are the ocean. When you churn the ocean, so many things come out of this ocean. So many objects are described in the Vedas, right? So many things, trivial results are described. Swarga, attainment of Swarga and attainment of different lokas are described. Then even Kaivalyam is described, and then attaining Paramapadam is also described. But our goal should be only on attaining Paramapadam, not all the intermediate things that are told in the Vedas, right? When we do any task. So that is the thing that is being talked about here. So in the churning process, our goal should be focused on that Amrutam. Similarly, even here, different phases are described, right? There is a certain phase. We know that when we talk about milk, right? Milk coming from the cows, that is being described here first. And then the cows themselves are the Vedas. And then the milk is Lord's qualities, Lord's pastimes, right? Those are all the things that are described as milk. Then after some time, the milk is getting converted to curd, right? That curd is nothing but these qualities. What is curd? Curd is a thickened form of milk, right? That means it is indicating a certain firmness, certain stability. It's a certain mature state of milk, right? So these Kalyana Gunas of the Lord, when we keep hearing, these things will become stable in our mind. When they become stable in our mind, that stable state of mind is called curd. Okay. Next, this curd is not sufficient. This curd will be transformed into buttermilk, and then from buttermilk, butter will be extracted. That butter is what pleases Krishna. We all know Krishna is a butter thief, right? Butter is what he really wants. So what is this butter? This butter is a state of mind that is so mature that it wants to offer itself to God. That is the state of mind that is called butter. Okay? It is nothing but a state of mind which is ready to offer itself to God. So that is the state of mind that God wants. That is what he enjoys. That is what he likes eating, right? That means he wants that from us, from all of us, right? That is this churning process that is being described here. Now, in Ksheerasagara Mathanam, when we see different objects came, right? Ucheshrava, Airavata, several objects came, Kaustubha, and, so many different things came from Ksheerasagara. And ultimately, Lakshmi Devi came, and Lakshmi Devi was offered to Narayan. So what does this Lakshmi represent? Lakshmi represents the desire to obtain God, or the Kainkarya Bhavam that we should have towards God. This Kainkarya Bhavam should be offered to Narayana, right? Therefore, that is the marriage of Lakshmi to Narayana. Right? That also comes. The same Vedam which gives all these things also tells that the Jiva is meant for Paramatma's sake. That feeling that the Jiva is meant for Paramatma is called Lakshmi Bhavam, right? That Kainkaryam, the sum and substance of Kainkaryam to the Lord is called Lakshmi, right? That Lakshmi is meant only for the sake of Narayana. So that Kainkarya Bhavam should be completely offered to Narayana. So that is the marriage of, Lakshmi with Narayana. And then eventually, only after Lakshmi is offered to Narayana, after that Kalyana happens, and finally Mohini Murti comes and Amritam is distributed, right? So this is one of the first things that should happen, that our services should be offered to Narayana. We should, that is when eventually we'll get Amritatvam, right? That is one message that is being talked about here. And then other things are also being talked about. So we have understood the churning process now. So one message is offering ourselves to God, right? And then there are also certain other things that are being described. So this is Kaika. So there are three things, Kaika, Manasika, and Vachika. So manasa, vacha, karmana we say, right? In all three ways we have to surrender to God. So this is kaika, the churning, physical churning process, and how any physical service that we do, we should do it as an offering to Krishna. So that is the meaning of this churning process. Then there are certain things that are clanging here, right? Something that they are worn as necklaces, something that is here. Now that thing they are clanging against each other. What exactly are these lockets, or what exactly is this Mangala Sutra, or what are, the three knots that are tied, right, as part of Mangala Sutra? So that is being described here. The three knots that are tied are basically Ananya Seshatvam, Ananya Sharanyatvam, and Ananya Bhogyatvam, right? After tying these three knots, then the Swarupa, or the identity of that, generally, the boy ties this to the girl, and then the identity of the girl changes from that point on. That the girl belongs to the boy, and then her Gotram changes, her family changes, everything changes from that point on. It's a turning point, right? Similarly, when these three knots are tied to the Jiva, then the Jiva from that point on becomes only someone who belongs to Paramatma, that is Ananya Seshat, indicated by Ashtakshari mantra. Then the Jiva from that point on has Ananya Sharanyatva. That means only accepting the Lord's lotus feet as one's shelter, right? This is indicated by the Dvaya mantra. And then Ananya Bhogyatva, that anything that the Jiva does is for the sake of Paramatma alone. And these are the three things that are being described using this. That anything that one does, one should always think that one is not the doer, and one is not the proprietor, and one is not the enjoyer of that particular act. This is the ultimate sum and substance of surrender. So when these things are present, then that clanging is close to the heart, right? We tie that necklace near the heart region. So this is manasika, right? That means internally, with these understandings of Ananya Seshatvam, Ananya Sharanyatvam, and Ananya Bhogyatvam, we should perform all our activities, right? It is these understandings that should, the clanging sound is an indication that these things should constantly go through in our heart. Constantly, they should keep touching each other. That means these feelings should constantly come to the surface, no matter what activity we do. So that way, our activities have to be performed. So this is manasika. Vachika, whatever they are speaking, externally, anything that they're always speaking about Krishna, right? We may say we have to speak about so many things. We cannot say Krishna, Krishna. How will other person, even if we feel that one Krishna has a meaning and another second word has another meaning, other person will not understand. So what does it mean to speak Krishna, Krishna all the time? It means just whatever speech that we are doing has to have an ultimate purpose that serves God, right? No matter what our conversations are, we should not engage in, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, right? Anudvega karam vakyam satyam priya hitam chayat. This is the sum and substance of speech. How should speech be, right? It should be anudvega karam vakyam. It should not agitate another person, whatever we speak. Then it should be satyam. It should be truthful. Just because it is told truthful doesn't mean we just blurt out anything. It should also be priyam. If it is not priyam, then it's better to remain silent, rather than, if it's not, if it's something that's going to hurt another person, just because Krishna said you should be truthful doesn't mean you should come and blurt it out immediately, right? So it should be priyam, and it should be hitam, that it should also cause welfare to the people that are involved. If there is an unpleasant truth sharing which, the entire circumstance will, it will not cause welfare to others, it's better to remain silent. Let's say, someone we know, is diagnosed with a certain disease. If we don't tell them, they may remain healthy for some more time. But if we convey that to them and somehow we tell them and now feel happy, yes, we have to speak truthful, then, with that knowledge, they might go, instead of living for 5 years, they may live only for 2 years, right? So we are not causing hitam to that person. So in this way, speech should also serve a certain purpose. When we follow these principles, that speech becomes speech in service of God, because these are God's instructions of how speech should be. That is a worship of God using the speech. So in this way, one should be. And then one more thing that is being described here in this Pasuram is that as the Gopikas are trying to churn, right? Once the churning process has started, the hair that was tied got untied, and the fragrance of the flowers that were kept, that fragrance started spreading all around, right? Now, what are these flowers and what is this fragrance, right? This also we should understand. in general, you know, the hair and the decorations to the hair are a certain aspect of beauty, and when a girl adorns herself with this, that is attractive to the boy, right? Similarly, when Atma adorns itself with certain kind of flowers, that is attractive to Paramatma. What are those flowers? What is that hair and what are the flowers that Atma should have? It is called Jnana Purvaka Bhakti. Right? This Jnana Purvaka Bhakti, that means it should not be a sentimental sort of devotion, but it should be a devotion that is based on a proper understanding of our relationship with Perumal. Right? When this is present, then that becomes attractive to Paramatma. Right? The Paramatma gets attracted to the Jiva when the Jiva displays this Jnana Purvaka Bhakti. Right? And while performing our activities, that fragrance of the flowers, it is told that is spreading everywhere. Right? That means while performing our day-to-day activities, this Jnana Purvaka Bhakti shouldn't be just limited to, morning Tiruvaradhana time, just for those 15 minutes. But this should be something that should pervade all aspects of our life, this Jnana Purvaka Bhakti. Then that fragrance is spreading all over our life. Right? So she is saying, have you not heard these? That means she is saying, see, we have certain realizations, but we want to enhance our realizations by taking shelter of Bhagavatas like you. You have better realizations of the Lord, right? Therefore, you remain our Nayakan. Nayakanai Penpillai, she says, right? That, don't just remain like an inebriated girl. Please come out of that meditation. Please become our leader, right? And please guide us in how this experience of devotion should be. And she's praising the Lord, that the Lord has certain wonderful qualities. She uses three terms here in this Pasuram, right? Narayanan, Murti, Kesavan, right? These are the three things she talks about about the Lord. What is this Narayan? Narayana is indicating the Vatsalyam of the Lord. What is the Vatsalyam of the Lord? The Lord is so merciful that whether somebody is an Ashrita or Anashrita, he makes no distinction. At the time of Pralaya, just like a mother, mother protects the child all the time, he protects all jivas within himself. Right? Naranam Ayanaha Narayanaha. Narayana is that tattva that exists as the support for all the jivas. Right? He doesn't show any distinction that these jivas I will not support because they are not surrendered to me. Only these jivas are surrendered to me, therefore I will support. This kind of distinction does not exist. Just like a parent does not show any distinction between an obedient child and a disobedient child. Ultimately, when it comes to giving protection, the parent has to protect both children, right? So similarly, Narayana also displays this Vatsalyam. So this Vatsalyam, she is glorifying how merciful the Lord is, that irrespective of where we stand, he is always going to shelter us. So that is the Lord about whom we want to learn more by taking shelter of you. So please come out and tell us, become our leader. She is saying, Murti, this Narayana has a very interesting property. Just because he remains everywhere and he remains supporting everything doesn't mean he is very inaccessible to us. His Saulabhyam is emphasized using this Murti. Coming from a form that is inaccessible to our Indriyas, he takes a form which is very much accessible to our Indriyas. And he has taken numerous Vibhava avatars, just like Rishi shared, right? All the Vibhava avatars are meant so that we can actually visualize the Lord. When we are told Varaha Avatara, we can immediately visualize what that is. When we are told Narsimha Avatara, immediately we know how to visualize the Lord. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that Klesho Adhikatarastesham Avyaktasakta Chetasam, that it is very difficult to meditate on something that is intangible, something that is indefinite, something that is incomprehensible. But it is easy to meditate on something which is a definite form. So therefore, the Lord appears in a form that is easy and accessible to us. So he is very sulabha, easy to approach, right? Easily accessible. So his saulabhyam is being glorified here. And then Keshavanai, that she is also talking that the Lord is a killer of the demon called Keshi, right? It's called Keshi Nishudana, right? That is one way we glorify him. Keshava has multiple meanings, right? One meaning is this. He is the killer of all inimical forces or destroyer of all inimical forces. Another meaning is he is someone who has beautiful keshas, right? He is called Keshava because he is very attractive to look at, right? That is another meaning. Then Ka means Brahma, Isha means Rudra. He, from whom these two have come about is Keshava. He who exists as support for these two is Keshava, right? So that is another meaning. This, Rudra himself shares in Mahabharatam. He tells this slokam, right? You are called Keshava because, Ka is Brahma, Isha Aham, Sarvadehinam. That I am the Isha who is present in everybody, and you are someone who is a support for both of us, right? Therefore, you are called Kesava. So, in this way, this is the Lord about whom we want to sing, right? Even while singing, how can you lie down like this? We want to sing about this Lord, but you don't want to come out of that experience, right? How can you lie in a state of mad intoxication like that? Please come out, open the door, right? And then she is saying, Tesamudayai, that you are filled with so much splendor, but that splendor will be displayed to the world only when you open the door and come out, right? If you have a very nice light, but you close the door and keep, what is the use? Right? You open the door and bring the light out so that everybody can get illuminated, right? So that is what these gopikas are calling out, that, there is so much to hear about the Lord. There is so much to, do in terms of our kainkaryam. All these bhavanas, they are describing that. Theory says that these are all the things we should have, but we need the guidance of a Bhagavata who has all these things in Anushtanam. So you please come out and display these qualities to us and remain a guide to us, remain an icon to us, and lead us to Krishna. In this way, she is saying, Elor Empavai. This is our beautiful Vratam. So please come and join us in this Vratam, is what Andal is saying. With this, we will conclude for today. I'll also see if anybody here wants to talk anything. Jai Shri Mami Harini ji. Okay. I think folks here are busy, so I'll end this, but let's see.